Human language is one of the things that makes us human. Well, okay. Technically, it is not entirely unique to us, because there is some evidence that some animals communicate in ways that are kind of like language. But I'm talking about human languages, the ones we use every day, and they're obviously a big part of our daily lives. They allow us to convey complex ideas, tell stories, and pass down knowledge from one generation to the next. So, in short, language is pretty great. But if that's the case, why do we often underestimate just how sophisticated our earliest communication systems were? Hi everyone, this is 10-Minute History. Today, we're looking at why we underestimate early human communication. The story today comes from an article published by Live Science titled, "Did Neanderthals Chat Like Modern Humans?" The article talks about a study that was recently conducted at the University of Arizona and published in the journal Royal Society Open Science. In a study, researchers argued that modern humans may have been speaking in full sentences and using more complex grammar than previously. Thoughts, which means our distant ancestors may have had even more sophisticated communication styles than what we currently think. Now, before we get into the specifics of this study, let's quickly cover a bit of background. One of the most well-known theories about how human language developed is called the gestural theory of language origins, or GOLA. If you've seen any videos about how humans may have started communicating before spoken language existed, then chances are you've heard of GOLA. This theory argues that our communication systems first began with gestures and sign language before evolving into speech. A lot of people seem to have bought into this idea. Just a quick Google search for "how did humans develop language" returns results suggesting that GOLA is a widely accepted theory. But if you look deeper into the sources and studies, you realize that GOLA is far from being a settled debate. There are many other theories out there about how language developed. Regardless though, scholars generally agree that early human communication probably looked something like this. According to Live Science, researchers traditionally assumed that early hominins only communicated through short phrases, such as using one word to request food or another word to warn of danger. Scholars also believed that these early communication systems lacked the kind of complex syntax found in modern human languages. Instead, communication probably consisted of a combination of sounds and gestures, kind of like when you trying to describe a picture to someone and you point and make vague noises. In the new study, however, researchers challenged this long-held belief that early hominin communication was simple. The team proposed that early humans used something called Argonaut syntax. This type of communication is defined by its reliance on agents, task, and object word order, similar to the typical subject-verb-object structure found in many modern languages. This means that early humans could have constructed full-fledged sentences that conveyed not just basic needs and warnings, but much more complex information. To reach their conclusion, the researchers carried out experiments on adult apes in captivity. They wanted to figure out whether apes could learn to understand the syntax of a constructed language consisting of arbitrary symbols. The scientists chose to teach the apes the Argonaut syntax word order because it is similar to the syntax found in many human languages. Although GOLA theorists don't necessarily reject the possibility that early humans used a sentence-like communication system, they would argue that anything more complex than single words was probably rare. As part of their experiment, the researchers worked with 24 bonobos and chimpanzees, splitting them up into 6 groups of 4. Each group was taught the syntax of the artificial language through a series of games and tasks. The researchers paired an action word with a symbol and then taught the apes which agents could perform those actions. For example, the apes learned that the triangle meant eat and that humans could eat but could unbe eaten. By combining these symbols and action words, the apes could communicate relatively complex messages. After learning the syntax, the apes were presented with a series of symbols and asked to arrange them in the correct order to form meaningful sentences. Overall, the apes proved to be quick learners, showing an ability to understand and use the constructed language just 5 months after training began. Bonobos showed an especially high ability to communicate complex ideas, demonstrating an understanding of the artificial language's syntax. Based on their findings, the researchers concluded that apes are capable of learning to communicate in a syntax-based language, which suggests that early humans likely could have done the same. The researchers then went a step further and applied their findings to our own evolutionary past. They argued that early hominins almost certainly had the cognitive capacity to develop a language with an agent-action object syntax, just like the apes in their study. There's a few reasons why the researchers feel so confident making this argument. First, apes and humans share a recent common ancestor. So, studying the cognitive abilities of apes can shed light on the abilities of early humans. Second, the fossil record shows that hominins had the brain capacity to develop complex communication systems long before modern humans emerged. Finally, the researchers note that early hominins lived in complex social groups with overlapping which would have necessitated a sophisticated communication system to maintain social order. Overall, the study paints a picture of early human communication that's much more complex than what is often portrayed in academic circles. While the study received some pushback from critics who questioned the applicability of teaching syntax to captive apes, the research team stands by their work. They view it as a significant step forward in understanding the evolution of language. This study may very well change how we think about early human communication. If it turns out that early humans could construct full sentences, then our understanding of our own evolution will have to change. We'll need to revise our beliefs about how and when exactly language developed. It also means we should probably take a second look at how we think ancient humans interacted with each other and how they may have communicated with other animals. But regardless of what the future brings, we can probably all agree that language is an incredible thing. Consider the fact that you're watching a video about linguistic research on the internet, something that would have been unimaginable just a few decades ago. Now think about how this video is affecting you right now. Chances are you're sitting in front of a computer screen somewhere, listening to my voice while looking at images that accompany my words. You're experiencing the power of language in real time. Your eyes are taking in written words, processing them, and your brain is translating them into spoken language, allowing you to understand the message being conveyed. All of this happens seamlessly without you having to consciously think about it. Language is truly amazing, but it's also complex and constantly evolving. As our understanding of language grows, so too does our appreciation for its power. Whether it's the way we communicate with each other or the way we process information, language is an essential part of our everyday lives. I hope you enjoyed learning about this new research on early human language with me. To watch more videos like this one, please consider subscribing and supporting us on a crowdfunding platform. Thanks for watching! See you next time!